Hi, my name's Michelle. I've been listening to the podcast for about 3 years. Last year I decided to become a patron. I like supporting content creators, and the $1 a month was the least I could do. And this year I decided I had so much fun, I was going to increase my pledge. So now I'm a $10 patron, and I am totally in love with all my new naked friends in the peep show, and I feel like this counts as paying for some of your porn. So if you like memes and you like funny naked people, you should definitely sign up and pledge $10 a month. Thanks.
Welcome to the Man Whore Podcast.
What's up, all you sex geeks and porn nerds, sluts and scholars? This is Billy Presida, and you are listening to the Man Whore Podcast. Hey, everyone, how you doing? Welcome back to the show. This week on the Man Whore Podcast, I have got on sociologist, porn academic, Dr. Chauntelle Tibbals. She is the author of the book Exposure, a sociologist explores sex, society, and adult entertainment. It's a fun read. I've read it myself, and I cannot wait to share my conversation with Dr. Chauntelle in a little bit. But first, you know what we're doing. Show dates, baby. Show dates. Okay, next week I got some stand-up dates for you, but right now, I want to remind you, you got just 10 days left to bring Tour de Man Whore to a city near you. Oh yeah, San Francisco has already been activated. That's super exciting, and I will be announcing a show date for the San Francisco live show in the coming weeks. But right now, people, we got 19 cities left to activate and just a little bit of time left to do it. A little refresher, here's how this whole shindig works. When I sell 20 pre-sale discounted tickets in a city, I'm going to come to that city. The catch is, when you buy your pre-sale ticket, you do not know the date or venue yet. That's why it's pre-sale and discounted. But when we hit 20 tickets, guess what? I'm coming to you. We don't hit 20 tickets, I ain't coming. So show me that you want me. Show me that I'm worth it. Go to manwhorepod.com/tour. Click on your city. Get your ticket or get a nice little bundle of tickets for you and your friends today. All right, we got quite a few cities that are like so close to making it. Where we got Detroit, Chicago, Miami, Dallas, Washington, D.C., Philly, Pittsburgh. Y'all are getting there. You got a lot of traction. And there's a whole bunch of cities on that list, okay? You know, Boston, Los Angeles, Portland, Austin, Texas. There's a whole bunch of places I could be going this year. But I got to know that my whoreheads are there for me in that city. So again, go to manwhorepod.com/tour. Also, super early bird weekend passes are available for Man Whore Con. Yes, those are now on sale. That's exciting. We've already sold a nice little chunk already. We got one woman who's going to be flying in from Norway. Holy shit, I'm reaching Norway, everybody. So this is definitely happening, and it's definitely going to be awesome because it has to be. There's a woman who bought a plane ticket from fucking Norway. We'll be talking plenty about Man Whore Con and what it is and what you can expect to happen and how awesome it is over the coming months. But if you already know that you want to spend August 2nd through August 4th in New York City with yours truly, head on over to manwhorepod.com/weekend and get that super early bird discount weekend pass. That's just $55. We do have a limited number available. I think we have at this point, as I'm saying this, I think there are 14 super early bird passes left. I know I threw a couple different links at you. You know, they'll be in the show notes as they always are. All right. Before I get to this week's guest, Dr. Chauntelle Tibbals, I got a little something special for you. This is think of this as a reward for not skipping through the intro as some people tend to do. I mean, look, I never know how many people listen to this opening portion and how many people just scrub forward until we get to the guest. But you know what? This one's going to be a little bit of a reward for you. While I was walking around the Adult Entertainment Expo in Las Vegas, I walked past this one table for a dungeon, and I'm talking to them, and they offered up. They said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing an episode of your podcast with maybe some of our dominatrixes, where they're like spanking you while you conduct an interview?" And I saw the prices. Apparently, this could have been a very expensive episode if they hadn't offered. So I thought, why pass up the free opportunity? It seemed really fun, and oh gosh, the person I ended up talking to is like super, 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 super cute, and I was like, would this individual be involved? And they were. So I was like, sick, let's do this. And I came back a few hours later, and I dropped my pants, bent over a spanking bench, and tried to have a almost super normal conversation with someone, while a woman behind us gave my ass a proper beating. I want to give a shout out to the Sanctuary Studios in Los Angeles. It was their booth that I came across. It was their professionals that took wonderful care of me. But for now, let's chat with a wonderful person who goes by the name Grape Noir. Yeah, hey everybody. What's up, patrons? I'm here at AVN at the Adult Entertainment Expo, and I'm about to get, I guess, spanked. Yeah, I don't even really know the plan, but, the Sanctuary Dungeon?
Sanctuary Studios, located in Lenox, California. Hi.
Yeah, I ran across their booth, and they were like, hey, would you want to do like an episode where, maybe you have a conversation while stuff's happening to you? So I was like, that's awesome, because I know what you pervs seem to like. You seem to like it when Billy's being stimulated or in pain. So I say, like, let's possibly have both.
Yep, a little bit of both. So,
Grape, would you like to introduce yourself?
yeah, so I am Grape Noir, GrapeNoir, and I am also a switch at Sanctuary Studios. Michelle is going to be Spanking Billy, and yeah, and he and I are just gonna talk a little bit while he's getting spanked.
Yeah, just super casual, because that's what life is like. Do you mind if you're like on your knees, just so like I'd be like, get on your knees.
Do you mind if you are on your knees? That is adorable. Oh my gosh.
Don't ever ask that again. We're gonna demand you everything at this point. Okay?
Oh man, yeah. You don't get any more.
So you're a dominatrix, like at the dungeon, or?
Yeah, so we're both switches. So essentially, we can do both dominatrix roles or submissive roles. Sometimes people come in and they're also a switch. They want a little bit of both. So yeah, but we can fill both roles.
Before we get started with this interview, my name is Michelle. I am a professional switch, and I'm gonna have to ask you to pull down your pants, please.
Ooh, yeah, he's pulling them down. Getting the belt off. Ooh. Yep. Yep. Got some junk action right there. Now he's kneeling on this kneeling bench.
Please kneel on that horsey for me. Thank you. Okay.
Ooh, and this peachy little ass is exposed right here. Ooh.
I will say I have been spanked before. I just have not been like on a bench like this, and then also certainly not on a podcast.
Well, it's good, right? It's really ergonomic. It's nice. You can.
Please let me know if I'm going a little too rough for you. Sure. Do you know your safe words?
I'll give you like yellows and reds. Is that cool? Perfect. Wonderful. Because like if I say pineapple, I'm just gonna laugh, and that doesn't help. How'd you get started working at Sanctuary?
So I have been lightly into, I guess, the kink scene since I was 18. This past summer at Los Angeles Pride, I just went in the adult area, and Sanctuary had a demo going on and just some flyers saying, hey, you could work here. So I sent an email, and I was so nervous, but actually was really chill interview. Mistress Cyan, the headmistress, is amazing, and it went really well. I got hired on the spot, I guess, and I started a couple weeks later.
Totally. I'm good. Life is ridiculous. Well, yeah. Well, when did you start like discovering kink, ink? Even the soft part is like ridiculous. I know she's running like her
nails.
fingers.
Yeah. Oh my god, it's amazing. Nice rosy butt. So, actually, when I was a teenager, I think, which obviously I can't legally engage in this type of behavior then, but I don't remember if I read about it on the internet first or like a book, like an Anne Rice novel or something like that. But I was like, oh yes, this is the thing that I need to be doing. I like this thing that I haven't done before. So then, as soon as I was 18, I just like met someone else who was into it and was like, okay, let's fuck around with this a little bit.
Oh. Totally. I got into kink when your boss was like, hey, want to do a podcast about it while you're doing it.
So a few hours ago.
It takes different walks of life. Let's do it. I feel so exposed. and I it's almost scarier when they leave and you don't know because they're like, what? But I also can't fully look behind.
Oh, yeah. She's getting something wonderful. You're going to love this.
Oh, great. Great. Wonderful in the kink world, always, not wonderful the way y'all mean for everyone else.
It's all about, it's an acquired taste, for sure. An acquired taste.
I mean, that part feels nice and like cuddly and.
I can make spankings cuddly.
Yeah, they can
Yeah,
absolutely be sensual.
Where's the fun? Yeah, but.
Well, actually, there are a lot of different people in the kink community who don't like pain. So they'll be in it for years. They will be professionals even, and they don't want to be hurt. It's a lot of people just think like the whips and chains, as much pain as you can possibly take kind of thing. Yeah, which, oh my god, yes, I am wearing a sparkly leather daddy hat. It's fantastic. Yeah, I look kind of scary right now, but I am such a softie. But yeah, there's wrestling, there's just more psychological stuff where people do role play, there's just sensuality, there's so many different implements and little tools just that feel good on your skin. There's so many different things you can do just in the kink scene, and it's not just whips and chains. Ooh, she's holding out a flogger. Ooh.
I got nervous. Yeah, let's go for it.
He'll call us safe words.
Right?
Yeah, let's go for it. You got a green. I've never been like fully flogged. Like you're like at a play party and someone just like casually was like, oh, that's cute. I haven't been like flogged. Well, that's nice. I'd love to get to know it. Oh, that is it weird that that's the part that felt the best? Oh yeah. I love those fucking things. Oh, that's what I gotta do one day. Is like I want to jerk off while using one. We're talking about the metal spiky thing that you run. Yeah, I want to jerk off while using that because it's so hot.
So last night we were at a party and it was kind of winding down and the guests were leaving and just those of us that were working there. One of my coworkers has a electro kit, so I don't know if you've heard of that, but they're like electro wands.
There's always some dude at a party who's like, "Oh, I got the electric stuff."
Yeah, totally. Popular. So she was really into that and gave me the most incredible experience. So it's like the kind of thing where she can touch you with her fingers, and it's like a body contact button. So she was just doing her hands. She did like a knife, just all the different types of metal tools that conducted it. The very last one was one of those metal head massagers. So it goes down on my head and I just like start writhing. I'm in the most ridiculous ecstasy. I feel like I'm on drugs. Apparently I was making great facial expressions too, and I just felt so light and amazing after. It was awesome.
I honestly like a super raw, like, so I identify, because I don't think we ever shared that, so I identify as like a straight guy, right? But like when I go get my hair cut, it's like one of my favorite erotic experiences. I've really just gotten over the last couple of years, I've just gotten over the fact that like, yeah, this is an Armenian dude I've been letting cut my hair for 8 years, and I am so turned on when it's all those little hair pulls, like those really subtle things. Like grabs it. Oh, it just all feels like I wish someone was blowing me while I got a haircut. Yeah, but like in the way when they cut your hair, it's like a lot of really quick, short ones. Like this? Yeah, and the snips. I'm like, can somebody
do that too? You should definitely do a podcast with someone blowing you while you're getting your haircut. That I feel like you could have those connections, find those kind of people.
I'm feeling good. This is kind of this is fun.
I love the way your ass is jiggling. Oh, I like that ripple.
Yeah, I've been told I have a bit of a booty. It is what it is. One of the slight benefits of growing up like a slightly doughier human. But yeah, no, I like my butt, and some ladies seem to like my butt, and certain fellas at Stonewall tend to also insist on telling me I have a great butt. I'm like, so I've accepted. I probably have a nice butt.
Yeah, I can confirm.
It's funny you were talking about how like kink doesn't have to necessarily be painful, because like Jesus, there was like this sadist that I hooked up with who actually is exhibiting here, and like she has me over and like she ties me up on the bed and like does a lot of pain shit to me that I'm like, careful. She puts these magnetic nipple clamps on me.
That's awesome.
But like I was like, are these like special extra hard, like extra magnetic ones? Because that was so painful. And she also had a tickling fetish, like, so you like tickling me. And I'm like I don't like that. But then she starts sucking my dick, and then it's like, if I stop, she stops sucking. So I'm like trying to hold out in this tickling just so she can keep blowing me. And then I also had my penis tied up, and that was kind of fun.
Imagine giving her head while she's tickling you. You'd probably bite her clit off.
I'd be like, I'm done licking your pussy.
Oh my God. Yeah, CBT, cock and ball torture is another one of my favorites. It's fantastic.
The rope one was fine, like it didn't feel like painful torturous, and that was nice. But it was interesting because I was blindfolded, so I couldn't. Like when she starts with the base and the balls, and so she's just wrapping around. So it's like I can picture that in my head. I know what my dick looks like right now. Then she starts wrapping it around the shaft, and I'm like, I have no idea what this looks like. So I said, hey, I need you to take pictures of this just so I have an idea. And I ended up having a really nice like soft one, and then I had like a really hard one. And members of the Peep Show have seen the hard cock rope one, and I think you all have access to the soft penis rope picture somewhere in my Patreon feed, because oddly enough, Patreon's like, you can have penises on there, but they can't be hard. That's the weird rule that they decided to have.
Like it's art at that point and not sexual if it's not hard.
Which is bullshit, because like you can have a lot of fun with a soft penis. Like it does, like a penis doesn't have to be hard to be able to have like a fun, sexy time.
Yeah, there are people who can orgasm and ejaculate while their penis is soft, depending on how they, I don't know, pleasure themselves.
Do you want to describe what is she's like? What's she using? This is a situation where like I don't actually know what's happening.
Okay, so she is currently using a paddle that is kind of in the shape of a tennis racket, but it's a lot smaller. She's putting on some nitrile gloves. What that sounds scary. What's she gonna do with that?
If you want to seem like a pro in the bedroom, have just a box of those gloves. You'll look like you know what you're talking about, even if you don't.
And alcohol.
Okay. To apply, was that what you were spraying on me?
I was spraying alcohol to clean the toy that I was using, and to alleviate you from any pain by blowing it after. See how I was blowing on your ass afterwards? Yeah, I was supposed to relieve any like heat from the pain. I'm actually a masochist.
Okay.
But I'm a really good dom.
Okay.
So Michelle has been spanking you so hard. One of her tits is hanging out. It's gorgeous. I'm so happy about this.
I am so offended.
I know you don't want to apologize.
Female nipple. How dare you?
So I guess I have a question for you. You seem like a masochist, not in like necessarily the pain sense, but with those pictures of you on the internet. You were talking earlier about like having a show where 3 of your exes were there. That sounds incredibly humiliating. That sounds like you're into lots of kinds of psychological torture, and that really sounds kinky to me.
Yeah, sometimes I'll refer to myself as like an emotional masochist. It's I'm just living my growth publicly. Like my embarrassing breakup stories or my faults are not dissimilar to yours or most people's. I'm just willing to put them out there and say like I'm imperfect. And I'm willing to be really sad for your entertainment. So I hope you all fucking appreciate this. I love you all, patrons. Hi.
That sounds really therapeutic. Yeah. Wait, are you touching his balls? Oh, that's great. He loved that.
Definitely so far my favorite part.
Does that hurt?
No.
Oh, okay, good.
She's like, it better not, because it's gonna get worse. Yeah. No, it's interesting to do. But I will say that the women who would probably be the roughest on me emotionally.
She's like fake hugging him. It's great.
You fucker. The ones who I think would be the roughest with me though, like won't do the show, and I'm just like, isn't it most of our dreams to like humiliate your ex in front of thousands of people? Like,
But not if he asks you to. Like, he has to not want it.
Like, what, you're gonna tweet it to your 300 your civilian account with 312 followers? Like, it's like, I'm gonna give you the reach. I'm gonna give you my people to do it to. I don't know. If my ex hit me up to do it, I would revel in the opportunity.
Maybe they don't want the public to know that they were associated with you at any point in time.
See, that's a fair reason. Be like, I don't want to admit I made out with you. It's like, who? And I'd be like, yeah, me too. I wouldn't want to admit to fucking me either. So that's a good reason.
How is this fucker still keeping a conversation, man?
I am assuming lots of practice, and he is pretty good at this. It's great.
No practice.
Maybe you should hit him a little harder so he can't. Yeah, he might like that.
I mean, are you okay with that?
I mean, yeah, we're here for the
Are
thing.
you touching your balls still at the same time?
Yeah, like I don't want to be bratty and be like, yeah, it's pretty soft, but
Oh yeah, did you hear that? Your little brat said it was too soft.
no shit, fuck.
On his boss side?
No,
Oh, yeah.
just overall, I think you're being too soft. He didn't want me to tell you.
So you can continue talking, but I guess not.
I think that yes, I think just like that. All right.
Now more distracting. What's this like for you, friend?
This is. I have never done anything quite like this. This is fantastic. I'm a little of both. There are days when I am absolutely a masochist, and yeah, I definitely into some very, very dirty, dark things.
See, I get very subby, but it's not like I want to get beat up, called like a dirty little whatever. Like I'm very like I think the closest thing I've been identifying to is like a little, and I'm still figuring what that is for me. But like I like curling up. I like almost like. I like a dominant woman, but like almost like in a maternal sense. Like I will be punished if I misbehave, but like I'm not going to. I like following instructions. I like being a good boy.
Yeah, that's like littles, pets. Those are definitely ways you can be into kink and not be in pain.
I like
yeah, so that's actually interestingly for the longest time I was like, oh no, like the daddy dom little girl thing is not my thing, and that's weird to me. But later I learned it was more like. It's more just about relinquishing control and just like being safe with somebody, and it's not about like actually pretending it's this like creepy like relationship thing. And that's I think what a lot of people get wrong, because it's not inherently sexual. Obviously you can have sex with that person, but it's something a little different.
I'm just checking on that. I just want to take a peek. I would hate for it to be like something like came out. Yeah. Yeah, and if I may ask, like, I hope it's okay, Shay, you told me before we turned on that, like, you identify as, like, non-binary?
Yeah.
So how does, like, stuff like terms and roles like daddy dom, little girl, good boy, whatever, like, how do those play into your identity and your kink life?
Okay, that's a super good question. Okay, so...
I'm kind of a professional at this asking questions thing. Hi.
Yes, hi. Okay, so...
Professional at taking pain, apparently, too.
I'm trying. I don't want to disappoint you.
The first thing I think of is I saw this meme somewhere on the internet where it was like the gender neutral term for sugar daddy or sugar mama is glucose guardian.
I saw that.
And
That's
hilarious. Glucose guardian. So it's like the...
Glucose guardian.
Yeah, so the gender neutral. Yeah.
Sugar dad, sugar.
Yeah. And then if
So
you're...
brilliant.
And then if someone wants to be your sugar daddy but doesn't have money, they're your Splenda daddy. But okay, so interestingly, when I with my primary partner, I have like a little persona that I use, and so it's essentially like a little girl. So I will use like she, her pronouns. She has like a different name and everything, and so that's fun. I mean, for me personally, I kind of say like I'm not a woman. I just cosplay one on most days because most people read me as a woman.
So wait, what's going on? Are we concluded? Are you guys cleaning up?
I mean, this place is over, but we have a party at 10 p.m.
Okay.
And I'm gonna be here chilling. I don't know if you want to continue this ass kicking or are we done or whatever.
I
Up to
will,
you.
whatever you two say we can and are allowed to do.
Well, I still want to kick your ass for a little bit more. It's up to you. What do you think?
If you're having fun, I'm good to keep pretending to know how to talk to people.
I'm also at a loss for words right now because
Yeah, that is multiple different sentences right there.
there's so much going on. Yeah. What's something you would say I should know about you?
I hate when I get asked like open questions like that.
Okay,
Gosh, no, it's fine. Or if you have any more specific things.
I'm having, this is weird. So normally when I have trouble talking, it's for blood flow circulation reasons. Usually my dick's like rock hard. However, I feel like there's some sort of blood flow issue.
So is your dick rock hard?
No, but it's like my ass maybe. Like maybe it's all the blood rushing to my ass. It was hard definitely for at least like a good minute. Oh boy.
I guess we do have to leave at 8.
Yeah, that's what it seems.
All right.
Well, let's give a shout out to Sanctuary Studios. Do you want to tell everyone like a quick like boilerplate of about Sanctuary while I pull my pants up?
Yeah. So Sanctuary Studios LAX is, I want to say it's the biggest square foot dungeon that we know of in North America. It's been in LA for years. It is about 5-minute drive from LAX airport, and we're open 7 days a week. Walk-ins accepted, appointments taken. If anyone's in the area, you can check us out on the website. I don't know anything else I forgot. Any plugs?
Anybody want to plug some Instagrams?
My Instagram is moonminx_erotics with 2 X's. I am a professional switch. I am a POC, brown. I'm a woman, I guess. Yeah. And I kick ass.
Cool. I am Grape Noir, and my Twitter is Grape with Noir, but that's spelled GRAPEWITHNOIR. That's my Twitter. And sanctuarylax.com. I can't even remember the website now. Anyway, if you look it up online, you can grab it.
Well, thank you so much for being me open for chatting with me, and I want to say goodbye to everybody.
Oh yeah, goodbye. This was fun.
Good night.
Thank you, Miss Kim.
You're very welcome. I hope to see you later on, either at the party or in life. Whenever you want me to beat your ass again.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right, you perverts. Did you like that? I figure you would. I mean, if you like the happy ending massage episode and the desire episode, I figured you'd enjoy hearing Billy be fairly distracted. Again, go to sanctuarylax.com if you want to learn more about Sanctuary Studios if you're ever in the Los Angeles area. Oh, did you know that we have over 100 bonus episodes of the Man Or Podcast available exclusively on Patreon? Yeah, got a whole slew of those. You know, sometimes we're talking a little extra with that week's guest. Sometimes I got on a whole other person, you know, like Alice Vaughn from the 2 Girls, 1 Mic podcast. Or my dear friend of the show, Andrea Allen, or hashtag Rosa is hot. All sorts of people come by the show to do the bonus eps. So if you've ever been like, I binged through all of Billy's episodes and now I'm all caught up. No, you're not. Because we got over 100 other wonderful, awesome, hilarious, sex-positive shows. If you remember the Happy Ending Massage episode. Yeah, you remember that one? That was a fun one. A lot of women emailed me a little wet and randy at work from that one. Well, did you know there's an entire second hour that I call the flip, where my masseuse asked me to flip over, and I tried to get through a super normal conversation while she stroked my cock. Yeah, that's available on Patreon. And this is exciting. Starting April 1st, all of the bonus episodes on Patreon will be available for just $5 per month. Yeah, $5 a month gets you access to over 100, I think it's 134 bonus episodes right now. That's crazy. And if you haven't skipped through despite not being a patron, check this out. Once a month, for free, I will release a bonus episode on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/manwhorepodcast, make an account. You don't have to pledge to me. Just click the follow button and you'll be emailed once a month when there's a wonderful new show that you can get access to for free. Of course, joining the fan whore community on Patreon is a fantastic way to support this podcast and connect with your fellow fan whores. But if you're someone who's like, hey, I need to get something for my money, there's oh so much on there for you. Already available for free is my conversation with dear friend Andrea Allen, where she determines whether or not Billy is a sex addict. I think I had to answer like 44 questions from a website. That was a fun one. And it's available for free at patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. That's Patreon, patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. But now for this week's guest, Dr. Chauntelle Tibbals. Dr. Chauntelle and I actually were on some weird, random CBS radio podcast thing years ago. We were both guests on that episode via Skype or whatever or something. And we had a really fun conversation back then, and we've kept in touch online over the years. And we were just waiting to share the same zip code so we could have her on the pod. Really glad we could make it happen. I did a little caveat for this. My voice sounds like shit. That is because this was recorded at AVN back in January, where the Sunday before AVN, 2 days before I flew out, I closed down a bar at 4 a.m. with a buddy of mine and totally blew out my voice, momentarily forgetting that I make a living using this whole voice box thing situation. So I apologize in advance if my voice doesn't sound like as awesome and peppy and sultry and sexy as it normally does, like right now. Is this a sexy voice? Am I doing it? So please forgive that. Yes, this was recorded at AVN, just like my spank-filled conversation with Grape. Again, a shout out to my patrons, because it's only because of you that I could afford to take a trip to Las Vegas and hang out at the AVNs and get all these really, really cool conversations while I was out there. But now let's go ahead and get to my conversation with Dr. Chauntelle Tibbals. So you're going to want to be like right in front? Right there. That's perfect. That's fantastic. What a way to meet, because we've known each other now like through the internets for a few years.
A long time, yeah. It has been a few years.
It's like I've been waiting to read that book for years. Because my thing was like, I'll read it like when we're gonna finally do the show, and then I was like, I don't know when that's gonna be, and I want to read the book, so can I just like have a copy and just get that going?
Did you read it?
Yeah, I know. I read that like sometime last year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was very interesting, and since then I've referenced it a few times. Like when I've talked to other academics.
Oh, cool.
And because like what was really interesting was like how you said you were getting like blackballed by like just because of the topic that you wanted to cover.
Yes, true fact. And it was a weird thing to write that book, because I have gotten comments. They're like, this is not academic. It doesn't say that it's an academic book. And it's funny because it's like the idea that there are multiple pieces of a wider story or scholarship is like bananas, I guess, to people to think about, because there's scholarship, of which I have quite a bit of, it's there, it's published, you can look at it and find it, but it's a different type of writing, a different type of work. And then there's the public work that I do, when I used to do more writing, but then also just like this kind of stuff at conventions and shows that I do. And then there was always that like, why are you doing this question? And so when I wrote that book, it was more of like a think piece, a bit of autobiography, stuff like that, to kind of fill in that third section, right?
The why.
Yeah. And it's just funny because so you do that, and then the people who have always been so suspicious of, why are you doing this? I'm like, well, here's a whole 200 pages to tell you why. And then the response is, this isn't academic. Like, this isn't. I'm like, you know what? Fuck you guys. I don't care.
I mean, I will say, like, I was expecting an academic book, and there's other books like that where, like, I expect one thing, and I realize that. I also was going to ask, like, so what do you call it? Like, is it a memoir? It just sounds like it's a big, long, leave me alone. Like,
I mean, maybe not a leave me alone, but it's more of it's a big, long, like, here's how I fit in this piece. Because again, with academic stuff, we're almost expected, or academics are almost expected. It's so funny to say we with academia. I do not identify as an academic.
If you got doctor in the front of your name, I don't think you get to not.
Right. I guess that's true. But academics are almost expected, and researchers are almost expected to pretend, and I say pretend because it's usually expected to pretend to be objective, or like they don't have some sort of humanity going into it. Like, we're supposed to read scholarship as if it's this factual treatise that, came out of the computer or somewhere. And it absolutely doesn't. Every single person who's participating in any kind of project, be it research generation, data gathering, making up questions for a survey, a human created those things, so you thought of the questions to ask. You figured out how to phrase them. If you're doing, like an in-depth interview with somebody, you, the person, are sitting there talking to whomever it is that's giving you the information. And to pretend like that doesn't have some sort of impact, it doesn't mean it's a bad impact, but it has some sort of impact. Human interaction and human experience shapes what we're doing. And so to pretend that that's not an issue is just the dumbest thing ever. And so it's very short-sighted. And so to talk about what my background was going into all of this work that I've done, it's significant because it's disclosing. And because of the nature of the work, I always ran into people, and also because of the nature of humanity and our society and all of that, I always ran into people who were very suspicious of why I was doing any of these things. So I'm like, well, here you go. Yeah. This is it. And to pretend like this isn't important is, again, very short-sighted. So I thought I was doing this like, hey, here you guys go, check it out. And then, of course, the response is like, whatever, who cares? I mean, there's no such thing as universal approval, obviously. So, whatever.
Well, this is a good time to say I'm sitting down right now with Dr. Chauntelle Tibbals. You have such a fun last name, by the way. Tibbals.
Right, isn't that funny?
It could be a breakfast cereal. It could be a...
It's the name of a hamster. My best friend from childhood always says, Tibbals the hamster. Tibbals the hamster. I'm like, thanks, man. I like that still to this day we are 41 years old and you're calling me Tibbals the hamster. Awesome.
When you said like the human interaction like actually matters, and that's... So again, we've known each other on the internet for like years, and like obviously we could have done this like through Skype. That's the exact reason why I only do it in person, because we're going to connect so much better if we're sitting right here on a couch than like if we're on Skype and like I'm like quietly like on my phone and you're like maybe also like Googling something, or you're
What's the date? I gotta fact check myself.
You're messaging someone like, oh, I'm doing this like stupid podcast right now. It's, I've done that. So it's like
I have too, not gonna lie.
Yeah. And so just like human connection, human interaction, it's a factor that like so many people downplay. And it's like honestly with like a lot of publicists I interact with, I have to explain that factor. And I'm like, yeah, we could do it on Skype, but it's not going to be as good as when we finally get together. And that's when like you get the good episode. That's when you get the good stuff. For sure. So you wrote this book, about like studying porn in a definitely more conservative time. Conservative era in the great state of Texas.
Right. Well, I mean,
it was UT Austin, right?
I did. Yeah.
It's been a bit since the book.
Yeah. No, I think that the book published in 2015, so it has been a few years. And when I started out doing the work that I do, it was the early 2000s, and I'm from Southern California, from the Los Angeles area, and so, it was odd to kind of move states to study what was happening, there in Southern California where I grew up. But, that's just, if you read the book, the circumstances will be explained to you how that happened. It was a little weird. But it's funny because even in the past, like 10, 15 years, the changes are so dramatic. And there was always a different attitude. There was a lot of pressure. There were the people who wanted to study pleasure products and novelty. Even back then, that was like, quote unquote, okay. And then there were aspects of the industry that, even when I was doing my work, people who were sort of advising me academically were like, well, why aren't you asking these questions or looking at this? More niche-y pieces and places of the industry that people were thinking about. And I was like, because one, I don't want to. Two, other people are already doing that. And three, what about the 90%, the majority? Like, because that's really what I started out focusing on in terms of content, looking at more quote unquote mainstream porn. And that the response to that was just like, ugh, that's terrible. Why would we even look at that? I'm like, wait a minute.
Well, let's catch some people up to speed. Like so what is your PhD in?
Sociology.
Sociology. And what exactly were you studying that you talk about in your book?
So when I was still doing research within my university program as a student, what I studied was the expansion of women's labor rights without a social movement. Mm-hmm. Meaning, I know that sounds funny. There's always this idea that, when you have power inequalities, somebody higher up, like figuratively, they have more power, and then there's masses who have less power, right? And generally, the way it's thought of is that there's not going to be sort of a voluntary reallocation of that power. The person who's, on the top, so to speak, possessing the power is not just going to give some power to people, because then they will have less of it. And, why would you do that? Instead, you want to be like a massive oppressor. But there's been instances, rare, but few instances, over time, where for strategic reasons, like in nation state development, the interesting example, I paralleled it with North African women's rights expansion.
Okay.
Where you see people reallocating power, meaning, giving people more rights, but without a social movement or a fight, without being forced. And the trick of that is to not think that that's like because of goodwill or charity or niceness. Often, almost always, it's strategic. And so, say somebody will be like, hey, here's some health insurance, or, here's, safety or whatever. And you're like, oh, you're so nice, dude. Thank you for giving me safety, whatever that means. And it might be nice, but it also is because if you are moving in a quote unquote progressive direction, then it keeps eyes off of you. So it's a strategic way. So like, in the North African example, and there's, 3 places and stuff. It's a whole complicated thing that I'm trying to really distill down quickly. It was for nation state building to look progressive in the eyes of the whole world. So an odd example to parallel with the adult entertainment industry, especially back in the 80s and 90s, where you do see some sort of labor standardization. You do see, efforts to sort of protect health very, very early on, and very, very rare and raw. But still there, that did not come from labor organizing. It came from, company owners and things like that. And part of it has to do with the, tight social network within the industry. So you see like, a company owner is also employing his sister-in-law, for instance, or, a performer is married to another performer, or, partnered in real life, quote unquote. And so you see people who have these connections, so they don't want to exploit each other. That's one aspect. But then there's the wider social aspect of the industry being so controversial and, eyes on it at all times. So if you make efforts to labor standardize, if you make efforts to protect people's health and wellness, however small, then what you're doing is you're getting people who are looking for every reason to shut you down as pornographers. They go, oh shit, well, they are using condoms. Ugh, we can't shut them down for health code violations or whatever, and I'm kind of making examples at this point. But you see that. And so it's this combination of, rights allocation, because you're talking about the rights of your friends and family, but also because you're doing it, strategically to protect your own interests. And that's what I started at. And this was like 2000.
How many people that... So sorry. I closed down a bar Sunday night till 4 a.m. shouting. Apparently, I threatened to body slam like a creepy dude. It was a night, and then this lovely, beautiful voice of mine is the product.
Has carried over for many days.
Oh, yeah. How many people sit across from you when you say that and goes like, yeah, totally. I get it.
Most.
You
can read it. There's a whole thing. You can look it up. You can email me and I'll send it to you.
But then how did you go from this like global situation in Africa to porn?
Well, because I needed to. So now I'm coughing. When you're doing academic work, first of all, nothing exists in a silo, right? Human interaction, science, whatever. There's science that comes before your science. Like I didn't just make up science, or I didn't just make up this study. And so there's always work and human interaction and subjectivity that comes beforehand. No kidding, right? We already talked about that. But what is wanted from, the academy is for you to connect your work with something else. So the work about, rights expansion in 3 different North American countries and nation states, that's work that existed before, and so I needed to find some framework to plug what I was talking about into it. And that was what I discovered. It was a weird reach, because it was literally like you can overlay this model that already existed on top of this new community. And a new community, I mean new community like nobody had ever really talked and taken it seriously before. Like, it's so odd. The idea that people would go and say, hey, person in this community, can I talk to you? For whatever reason, nobody wanted to do that before. So that was super wild. I don't know why. But so you needed to have so it seems like such an odd jump, to answer your question, but it's because I needed a framework to connect, to kind of plug my little puzzle piece into the bigger puzzle. And so I just used that one.
And then you end up watching what seemed like so much porn.
There was
so like when you were like sharing, like one of the like visuals that stands out to me was like when you were discussing like sitting down with the wine doing your coding.
Oh gosh.
That stood out. So I was like, that sounds like it. I recently had to write like a top 20 comedy specials list, right? For like some site. And I watched every comedy special that came out in 2018. I watched 60 stand-up specials in a month.
That's a lot.
And like by the end of it, I was like, I hate comedy now.
This is not funny.
I'm a comedian and I hate comedy at this point. Like, fuck all this. And like, I can't imagine you ever wanted to watch porn again after watching how much porn did you watch? Do you have like a number?
I can't remember the number. There's a,
We're talking like hundreds, thousands of videos?
It wasn't thousands. Okay. So I had to, because there's thousands of, especially back in those days when we're talking about discrete titles and I was having DVDs, like there were thousands produced a year. So there's no way. Yeah. So I had to do a framework and there was no pre-existing framework. There's no
other study you can go be like, oh, I'll just use this to build upon you had to build the foundation.
They use this framework so I can use this and tweak it a little bit or do it. None of that existed. Yeah. Any kind of stuff that it was out there that was talking about content was always like very sex negative, very like porn is terrible. And then they picked like 3 titles randomly. I remember going to this talk from a very anti-porn academic, and it
Gail
was
Dines, by chance.
It was not that person, but it was somebody within her crew,
sure,
so to speak, her academic online crew. And I remember watching the talk, and there was a PowerPoint that went along with it, and I was looking at the titles that this person was referencing, and I was like, you're talking about like a greatest hits, like a compilation. This isn't even a standalone title. You're talking like one of the examples was something that was, like the greatest scenes from Julia Ann or something. I'm making that up. It wasn't what it was. But I'm like, this is not a narrative film. And you're talking about it like it is. Like you don't even understand the content form that you're discussing.
Like you're not being fair to what you're studying.
It's not even being fair. You don't know what you're talking about. Like it would be like if I was talking about, I don't know, Entourage as a documentary or as a film. Like that's a television program. Yeah. Like what is wrong? It was bizarre. So what I had to do is figure out a sampling frame to use. And since there was none, and since there's not really any, records or tracking, when you talk about bestseller, we don't know what that is because, if you go to like a store, a novelty store or adult DVD store or something like that back in those days, the way sales are kept track, they may do it internally, but there's no, like if you were to go buy a CD from Tower Records.
I'm sorry. Wait, what? What are these things?
A compact disc, one side shiny, one side not so shiny, from a record store. Where you go to purchase an item.
Well, I'm so confused.
I know, right?
Shout out to all my listeners like born after 95.
Right. Sorry, guys. It's unclear. I get it. The world is different. But, there was a sort of a hub. All of that data was collected. And if somebody was like, Beyonce's whatever was the top selling, blah, blah, blah. Sure, there's piracy that would skew that. But there was a collective rendering of what was being sold. That didn't exist. It still doesn't exist for adult content. So I actually went to AVN Awards because I figured that what was award winning, and then they also had top selling. It was a very problematic sampling frame, but it was the best I could come up with, especially back in like 2006 or 8. I figured it showed a crystallization between popular amongst consumers and popular or well-liked amongst the industry. So things that fell on both lists. So a title that was a top-selling film in a year that was also award-winning, I use that. And I mean, again, are there holes in it? 100%. Does it mean anything? I mean, it means I tried to make a sampling frame back in the day. But yeah, so that there ended up being a lot of content on there. And I had to, break it down into eras and watch it and
like
code.
Types of photo. Like, yeah, you had like all these specific categories. like,
did we see this? Did we see that? Who was this? I had to go through the credits. And I mean, again, even credits.
You made it to the credits.
Oh, yeah.
None of us make it to the credits.
No, I did. It was the most nerdy thing on earth. But even
I've never gone to the third act.
Well, then you're using it for what it's supposed to be used for. But even going through credits, it's like when you think about pseudonyms and stuff, stuff. There's so many, like, who is this person? So-and-so, the whatever. Like, who is this person? Like, and to try to kind of code that obvious pseudonym, or even, later on going, oh shit, that person that had that name is actually that person with those, identities.
Yeah.
Like, oops, miscode. Like,
I mean, what was your relationship like with porn before you got into before you decided to do it? Like, were you a porn watcher? Or?
No, that's the thing that was so interesting. Zero. I think that's probably part of the reason why I was able to kind of look at it from more of a scientific coding and critique perspective, because I was not into it. Like, I wasn't. And that seems the weirdest thing. The thing that was compelling to me about all of this from the most nascent stage was the idea that people didn't understand the geography of Los Angeles and didn't understand the legality of the industry. And because I grew up there, I was like, what you're saying right now, this doesn't ring true.
Right.
This is not, there's no way your conclusions make sense. That's what was interesting to me. I felt like I had and I mean, for better and for worse, this is probably not as significant as I thought it was when I first started out, but I felt like I had some local level understanding of something that was being.
I'm from Cali, like, I got this.
I was like, look at me, I got a master's degree in the San Fernando Valley. I totally get this. Stupid, right? but I felt like, and I mean, I was right. I mean, I was right. I was like, there was more to there was more to it than what was being presented. And I knew that. And the reason why I felt like I knew it was because I felt like this person doesn't even understand this block that they're talking about. And so that's kind of what put me in there. But in terms of interest in the content, I had maybe seen a little bit of porn here and there, like randomly. Like, I remember one time when I was an undergrad, for whatever goofy ass reason, a bunch of friends and I went to go see some like old school 3D porno that they showed at like a indie movie theater that was right on the corner of, I think it was on Sunset and Crescent Heights. And now there's like a Crunch gym there or something, like this is a million years ago. This is like 1997 or something. We went to go watch this and I was horribly offended by the 70s porno. Right. I saw that and like a couple other random things, but really, like, my experience with content was as close to zero as it possibly could be in being like an adult aged person.
Do you think that part of that had to do with the accessibility? Because I think today so many more women watch porn, in part because one, there's a lot more varied porn that they can be into, but also because they can watch it, they can get it, they don't have to go into that creepy store.
Yeah. And the stores aren't as creepy anymore too.
Exactly.
100%. I'm sure that has something to do with, I mean, it absolutely. And that's, again, it goes back to the original point that I was talking about with, not discounting your biography. If I were to start over with my work today, if I was able to subtract 20 years from my age and start over and go, I've never seen this before, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, maybe it would, I don't know. But the fact that I was, a 90s kid and I was going to college in the mid to late 90s and things like that, it is absolutely 100% feasible and possible. Like, I literally, it wasn't because I was, oh gosh, I'm trying to avoid this sex material. It just I never crossed paths with it. And that's important to remember when thinking about the work that I do, the conclusions that I've made, the things that I've seen, the course of time, all of that, it's totally relevant. And to pretend that my biography doesn't matter is a disservice to all the work.
Do you watch porn like now, or like when the internet became more ubiquitous?
I mean, I obviously still watch it for work purposes in terms of,
well, I meant like recreationally. Did you end up getting into like watching porn as it became more accessible?
Not really.
I
mean, it sounds funny, but
no, it makes total sense to me. Like I said, it only took 60 stand-up specials in a month to be like, I'm done with. I still won't watch new comedy right now because like I'm done with it. If I had to watch the amount of porn you did in the amount of time you did, then write as much as I did, I'd be like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Even just talking to porn stars and talking about porn in like a thoughtful, conscious way, the way I do. Even now, I'm just like, sometimes I'm like, whatever. Like I watch porn sometimes in a totally non-sexual setting, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like,
it
like affects you.
Right. It's like, I can read other people's work. I can look at television programs. I can, see a cool garden that somebody made, and I can look at it and go, wow, that's awesome work. Like 100%. But in terms of like internalizing something sexually or finding something erotic about things, it's rare that I mean, there's a couple, I can think of a couple examples where I was like, damn, that was like, that pierced my consciousness. Like, there was this movie a few years ago called Wasteland, that came from Elegant Angel.
Oh, we were talking about porn. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like,
sorry.
is this James Franco? I don't know.
No, I mean, that
sounds
guy,
very indie.
Yeah. I mean, it's still to this day, like one of the most just beautiful, like incredible films ever. Like, I don't know. That was, I still, I'm like, ooh, that movie was really good. Like,
And that, but like so for like you could get turned on by like that type of a thing, or is it you're just appreciating it as like
I don't
art?
think it was turned on. I don't.
So you're just like, this is art. This is really beautiful art. It's not like, oh, this is a really beautiful erotic thing I'm watching.
I would say art.
Yeah.
I would say that's, and you know, there's some of it out there, but I mean, for the most part, it's like, look at this amazing narrative, or look at how cool this set is, or look at how like acrobatic and crazy like this thing that this person just did. You know, there's a lot of content that you can appreciate, and the creativity. I mean, you look at some cam content like that people make, and you're just like, how in the world how are there so many hours in the day that you can get in this cool costume and you can do this cool thing and you can be this interactive, and you're in your room by yourself, like, you know, camming. Like, there's some work that you see that is mind-blowing in how like human capacity for creativity, and certainly we see that. But in terms of like, maybe I'm too focused on how cool it is in other aspects that I've kind of signed that part over. But like, I no.
Yeah. No, I get that. That makes sense. And what are you writing about now? Like, what are you working on these days? What are you researching?
I'm doing a lot of work. It's interesting that I bring up webcam, because I'm doing a lot of work with cam companies and clips companies about, you know, changing and how interactive content is important.
Like consulting with them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and just working, and then I'm always trying to do like just outreach and community awareness and things like that. In terms of like research, like here's a new paper, I am not working on anything like that at this point, mostly because it feels futile. Like the process is so onerous, it's so thankless. Academic, you know, research is so locked in the ivory tower, and it's not accessible to people. And I feel that the work that I do, you know, if you can make it as accessible as possible and it can reach as many people, then it'll have the greatest impact. And, you know, writing something up for an academic journal that takes 2.5 years to publish. One of my papers took 2.5 years to publish.
Now, how long should it? How does the standard?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I have absolutely. Yeah. I don't know what it's like to have an easy or a seamless academic experience. So I couldn't tell you. It's not supposed to take 2.5 years for a cutting edge new research to like finally make it out there. And it wasn't because there was any slacking on my part. It was literally because like, oh, you know, we don't have anybody to review this. Oh, we don't really want to publish this, but we don't have any actual critiques that can say no. So we'll just sit it over here for a while. You know, so I don't really know. I can only speak from my direct experience, which is, I don't know, but I'm done with that sort of stuff.
I mean, it was very frustrating to read that through line throughout your book of like, just nobody wanted to fucks with this. Nobody. It was so strange.
Nobody. I mean, from every single, and it was
the funding stuff made me go like, oh, wow. Like
the speaking in academic conferences stuff where you're just, it's so counter to what you like as a, I didn't come from an academic background. You know, I didn't have a close mentor or anything like within my family or within my community that could be like, this is going to be hard, Chauntelle, like FYI. Or, you know, this isn't the like, we're making new information like dream that you think it is. I didn't know that. So I was naive, certainly. And then it was also kind of especially prohibitive, I think. But it was bizarre to the point of just being like, am I in bizarro world right now? To be like, you don't want to speak on a panel with me because you don't like my topic? Like, is this true? Like, you're a leading gender scholar at a respected research university and you're afraid of the word pornography and you say that you study like gender and labor? What the fuck is wrong with you? But I couldn't say that at the time because, you know, I was like 28.
I mean, yeah, but like, it's just so strange because like porn is probably one of the most gendered labors that there are, right? Like most sex work is
it's easy to be like, who's this dumb bitch? Like, and kind of write it off. But it's not about that. It's funny because, there's this tension between sociology and social behavior and psychology and individual behavior that we all kind of rest between. We have these internal things, but then we also have these wider social things that, impact us. And, the idea that there's just some jackass who's like trying to be mean to me, it was easy to kind of slip into that, especially at the time when I was like, fuck all of you. But that's not what it is. Or at least not what it is only. I mean, I'm sure there are jerks out there. Fine, be a jerk. But it's the idea that we are so uncomfortable with sex as a culture. We are told that sex is supposed to have these particular types of meanings, that sex is supposed to be done in these particular ways. And we don't even understand the mechanics of like sexual human bodies and all of the variability there, much less the idea that other people can be doing stuff. And then there's just like the simple busybody thing, like, oh, what's your neighbor doing over there? I don't like that because it's not like what I do. And we fall into all of these issues just with sex behavior in general. So you take that, this tension that we have about sex behavior in all its complexities that I'm totally rushing through right now and glossing over quickly. But you take that and then you couple on top of that, like the most counter to the common narrative, sex for labor, sex for profit, sex without quote unquote consequence that it might seem to other people because, people look at, they're doing all of this wild stuff. The idea that people don't understand how the industry is or is structured at all, that they don't understand the performance aspect is just a slice of it and the most visible slice. But there's so much more. I mean, you go talk to a random civilian about belling in traffic with porn and they're like, huh? Eyes glaze over like, like, what are you, what? Like, no, that's a very important thing. Like, if you can't get a biller, you're in trouble. Like, I said this the other day in a seminar that the people who control our sex expression more than anything is like Visa, MasterCard. Yeah. And people are like,
PayPal controls what you get to see.
Oh my
They're
goodness.
the reason why it's stepbrother and not brother.
Yeah.
Like, go back to the 70s.
Right.
There was plenty of incest porn. And at some point, someone's like, this is a little freaky. Hey, it's fine to fuck your stepsister, but not your sister in this fake
fantasy
movie.
world, right?
In this fake movie.
Wait, are they actually siblings? What? People think they don't understand.
But like, also, if they were like, what, just leave them alone. There's two questions that come to mind. And so there's only going to be time for one. So I'm going to ask both because they're the ones I'm really interested in. And you can pick which one you want to answer. Okay. It's one is, what did your peers in academia think, like the other students who were working on their stuff, what did they think of your work? Or did you feel like you faced any sort of harassment based on just, she's talking about porn, she's probably slutty and like I should like break some, like I should probably cross some lines because like I could probably get laid by this chick studying porn?
Yes.
Pick the one you're more comfortable with or you want to answer.
Well, they both kind of tie in together. So there was a lot of, she must be doing this, that, and the other. Always have your, it's interesting. Academia is so overwhelming that a lot of times people, their personal life and their school life start to blend in, especially when you're so concentrated. I was very lucky that I had, a strong social and friend network outside of that. And so I had all of my friends from, pre-academic life, and they were like, whatever you're doing, like, cool. Within the academic space, there was some friends who were like, oh, cool. One in particular who's still like very, very active in working towards gender equality on campuses, who actually teaches in Oklahoma now. And it's, this woman does a lot of great work for sex expression in different capacities, but was always, and she was interesting because she too had a rough time in grad school, for different reasons. But she was always like, I got you. And so that was interesting. But yeah, it was a bizarre, the rumors and the things and the presumptions and the assumptions and the this and the that, all things that were never bad, like there was a whole big hullabaloo about me supposedly being a stripper. And I'm like, one, who cares if I am a stripper? Like, there's nothing wrong with being a stripper. Why are you acting like if I was a stripper, it would be this big, terrible secret? I don't know. It's interesting to kind of look back and just try to self-reflect on my behavior, when I was in my mid to late 20s, even to my early 30s, kind of dealing with this sort of stuff. And, it's bizarre how much power you give up when you are a graduate student. And, for anybody out there who's listening to this and, you're thinking about graduate school or you're
and I know I have grad students who are also in trying to pursue sexuality studies or porn studies that listen. So,
and you're in that, or you're already in it, and you're experiencing this, like, don't let them get you down. Like and try to be brave as much as you can, because it is definitely a hard road, and it is difficult when you're so dependent. Your time is so wrapped up. Your everything that you can and cannot do is tied into who your advisors are, funding streams, and all of that stuff. It is the most political and almost demeaning or infantilizing experience. And it's truly challenging. It is truly challenging. And then and that's just being there. And then when you're doing something that people are constantly questioning you about and yet know nothing about themselves, it's rough. Email me. I'll talk you through it. But yeah, it's hard. So.
Well, if people want to reach out to you, or if they want to check out your work or read your book, where can they find you?
You can always find me on Twitter. At Dr. Chauntelle is my handle. It's Dr. like DR and then my first name CHAUNTELLE. I'm always on there. You can always email me there, or you can go to my website. It's ChauntelleTibbals.com. And there's contact information and all the things, and I'm always around.
And buy your book.
Yeah, it's called Exposure, and it's on Amazon, and it's wonderful fuchsia cover with a giant banana.
It
Not
will stick,
subtle at all.
It will stick out in your bookshelf. Like it's a very colorful spine.
Yes.
Chauntelle, it's so wonderful we got to finally meet. And
That's awesome.
Why don't you go ahead and say goodbye to everybody?
Thank you, everybody. And again, if you're struggling, give me a call or give me a text or a email.
Whatever you kids do these days.
Whatever you do these days.
A Snapchat thing,
yes,
I heard.
Something. Thanks, Billy.
Later. One more time, the book is Exposure. Do follow Dr. Tibbals on social media, on Twitter. I follow her there. She's a fun follow. Of course, you can follow me at the Billy Procida. Use the hashtag ManWhorePodcast. Let us know what you thought about this week's show. And if you want to send me a comment, a question, your titties, send it on over to manwhorepod@gmail.com. I know we haven't been doing ads this week, but I just want to say that my friends over at hotmovies.com are, in honor of March Madness, are doing a little bit of a pornament. Get it? Pornament. Yeah. Well, they're doing a little March Madness bracket style pornament. You should head on over, make a free account at hotmovies.com, use promo code ManWhore. You're going to get some free minutes, and you can participate in the voting. Me personally, I'm voting for all the former ManWhore podcast guests that are in competition. Jay Taylor, Sonia Harcourt, Riley Reyes, who you haven't heard her yet, but we recorded at AVN, and you will be hearing her soon. They're all in contention. I'm voting for all the ManWhore peeps. And I think you should too at hotmovies.com. You've got just 10 days left to bring Tour de ManWhore to a city near you. One more time, the URL is manwhorepod.com/tour. Time is running out. Next week, we've got on comedian and humorist Blythe Roberson, who wrote a book called How to Date Men When You Hate Men. So we're basically going to find out why Billy is hashtag the worst next week. But until then, stay slutty.
Honestly, I have to say that one of the best decisions I've made in the past few years was to join the ManWhore Podcast Patreon. I started pledging very early on, partially because hashtag pay for your content, but also partially because I believed it was important to recognize and support the work that Billy is doing. As a fellow podcaster of the Ask Historian podcast, I realized pretty immediately that the ManWhore podcast was very well put together, and there's a lot of thought and work into how the episodes and the project as a whole is constructed. Billy claims to just be a comedian with the fuck show, but I think it's pretty obvious to everyone and anyone who listens to these shows that that's clearly not the case. Of course, I don't think anyone would say Billy or even the ManWhore podcast is perfect. There's no such thing in this very cold, dark world. But this project is at very least a bright light in the near hellscape that we find ourselves in these days. Of course, you should at least pay $1 for the things you get from the membership, but you should definitely be paying $5 or $10 for work that is important and has undoubtedly changed your life, or it will as soon as you go listen to more episodes. Finally, if all those things don't change your mind, consider that ManWhoreCon brought together people from a dozen states and several countries. It can be very hard to live in a sex-negative culture or from sex-negative backgrounds because it's hard to get feedback from friends and family and the culture around you that you're doing the right thing, or that you're changing into a better person. Too often, non-normative people get told and showed in a million ways that they're doing the wrong thing, and doing it badly, and oh god, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why do you do these things? And oh man, to talk poly and relationship and life, and all these things with a group of people that are sex positive and in these groups and having a shared culture and a shared life experience in a sense reminds me in such a powerful way, in a powerfully needed way, that I'm not damaged, I'm not wrong, and I'm doing something right. And I hope that the Man Whore podcast in many ways does some of the same things for many other people. And that's the most wonderful thing about this podcast and the Patreon membership. And I hope you will join us there.